to our first episode of No Tilt Podcast. My name is Eric.
And I'm Javi.
And we're here to bring you the realest information that we can. We both have a real drive for this. And we decided to call it No Tilt. Why do we call it No Tilt, Jav?
We call it No Tilt. Why? Because we're not tilting either way. We're bringing you the information as it is, authentic, with integrity, right? And we're giving everybody a voice and empowering people in the process, man. So, like, no tilt, that's what we stand for.
We'll be doing this every week. We're going to be bringing out different guests. First, you're going to learn a little bit about us. So, we're going to talk about Javi's story. Then, we're going to talk a little bit about my story. So you know who you're communicating with and who you're listening to on a weekly basis. And then, we're going to start looking for some talent, some good people that's out there in the community doing their thing. Whether you're in your community doing your thing, whether you're a professional doing some really good things. We want to know about it. We want to bring it onto this podcast and get to learn more about you and why you're so special in the world and get that message across. So we've been doing this for a little while and we're excited to do this. You excited to do this?
Absolutely.
We're here to do this, man. We're going to have some fun. We're going to be growing in this process too. We spoke about the growth, right? So right now we're just starting off with a few tripods and a few cameras and a few lights. We're just trying to keep it authentic from the very beginning. We're doing this from my living room. Yeah. And we plan on doing it and taking it to a different level. But this is just the humble beginnings that we come from. And we're going to make sure that you enjoy some of this authentic growth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing that we've talked about. Like, we just going to go for it. We're going to start. Things will probably improve with time, right? But we had to start somewhere. So we started with these, like, Amazon Basics lights, right? And, like, I have to pay my camera. I like to be honest and transparent, right? We're just getting stuff off the ground. I know he got a little more money than me and shit, but
I'm broke. Don't listen to this guy.
We still gonna make it happen, baby.
Broke with his savings. But all right, so we're gonna get things started right away. First things first. I wanted y'all to know about this dude, man. This dude, Javi, I'm very blessed to have him as a co-host on this show. He's incredible. He's done a lot of good things in this world and this community. He's come a very, very long way. So I wanted you to learn a little bit about him. But before we get into too deep, what was up with these G-Unit tank tops and G-Unit? I met him when he was 11 years old, and when he came out, he was like all G-Unit up. So that was my first memory of him. What was this about?
How you gonna put me on a pedestal like that and then talk about my G-Unit tank tops and my G-Unit hat and the sneakers? I had the whole fit. Because why? I was rocking with G-Unit. I would sing it in my sleep. I would sing it on my way to school with my Walkman on, man. And it made me feel like I was a straight gangster, even though I was scared inside the whole time, right? It allowed me to tap into something that I thought I wanted to be.
Well, the outfit looked fresh. It looked great. I don't know if you had the bicep 50 Cent had on to rock that tank top, but you were trying your best, so I'll give you that. But before I even mention, I know you come from a good family, good mom, good dad. You have two sisters. You have two brothers as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you come from a good family. But when I met you in a G-Unit tank top, and you was going to Boston Latin, man, one of the best schools in the city. Talk to us about like how it was to go to the best school in the city so early on in your life.
Yeah, so that's a crazy experience, man. And to be honest, like Drake says, it's all a blur. I can't really remember too much of it, but I do know that as a youngin', like you said, my family was somebody were people that really believed in me and helped me in my process and allowed me to grow and gave me that safe space to be who I wanted to be, right? And in that space, I was able to achieve getting into Boston Latin School.
But what was that like? Because, I mean, not everybody gets into the Boston Latin School. I took that test. I didn't get to know Boston Latin School. Yeah. I ended up at Madison. So, like, you obviously learned a lot early on in life. I remember you being a reader. I think being a reader was part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But what else? Like, how did you move differently to be able to articulate and learn so much early on?
I mean, I think it's one of those things where it takes practice, but you also got to love it, right?
Yeah.
And I loved reading. I loved gathering information. And another thing that I know a lot of people didn't like me for was the fact that I used to read and I was really into biology and I was always trying to prove people that there wasn't a God and that the Bible wasn't real. And like, that's another deep subject that we can go into another day. But like at a young age, I had that capacity to gather information and present it to people in a way that I thought would convince them.
I don't know if anybody's going to judge you for that. And if you do, I think that's kind of a misstep already. For me, like, if he has an articulate mind and you had an articulate mind and you had a very intellectual mind early on, there's nothing wrong with questioning things. And I feel like early on that was kind of like looked at and frowned upon. But as we've grown older in our generation, we realize that's actually like a superpower. It's a strength, right? You can't just accept everything that's being told to you. So I actually respect that and I understand that. But you continue to learn, you continue to grow, and what happened from
Right.
there?
I ended up going to Boston Latin School, and the curriculum wasn't too much for me to understand. Right. Let's get that out the way. I was able to comprehend the stuff that they were telling me, but when I first went to orientation, they told me and my father, look, he's gonna come home with 4 hours of homework every day, and if he's not ready for that, he's not gonna be built for this. We were already so deep in orientation. I'm like, I gotta at least give it a shot. But I knew deep down inside that like doing homework and that type of brain work was something that I wasn't a fan of, right? So like I didn't do the homework like I was supposed to. I enjoyed drinking already at that age, right? Occasionally drinking. That's when my drinking started, and you know, I stopped. I stopped doing the work that was necessary. I started not showing up, and I decided that I wanted to take an easier path because I've always been the person to take the path of least resistance.
I mean, I appreciate you for sharing that because you're not alone. And I think that's the part where I'm trying to get at on this podcast for me is to just share that everybody's different and unique in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's story is different.
Mm-hmm.
And what you've gone through is not much different from many other people. I can't imagine how many young people and minds were trying to like impress their parents and stepping out and doing certain things that they may not be comfortable with just because they want to make their parents proud, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's noble of you, but it's not abnormal for somebody to not feel comfortable in that voyage, in that route, right?
Yep. And that's one of the conversations that I have with a lot of the youth that I encounter is that like, look, school's a great option, right? If you have certain career paths in mind that like require a degree. But if like you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to try to start a business, honestly, I feel that there's no better way than just going and trying, right?
Yeah,
because there's certain things you cannot learn in school, right? And some people like to be hands-on, man, and people are not told to, hey, try a trade, right? Like you can make just as much money as somebody who went and got their master's degree in social work, right? They don't express that to the youth, so they try to go to a fancy school to make their parents proud, so their parents can then tell their friends, right, that their kid's in a good school, but the kid's miserable all along.
Yeah.
And that's where the kid ends up hating himself, hating what he's doing, and what.
So where did that bring you? Where'd you end up after that?
I don't like to attribute too much of where I ended up to the pressures, but the pressures definitely
School-wise.
contributed.
Where did you go? School?
Oh, man.
You went from Boston Latin School, #1 in the city, right?
Number one in the city, one of the top schools in the United States, and it was the first public school in all of America. So a real historic place, right? And then I transferred to like some middle grade school, like Boston Latin Academy, which is like nothing to frown upon.
I forgot about that. They're a good school too.
They're a good school.
I would have took going into there.
Yeah.
What do you mean? That's the second best school.
That was most kids' goals, right? What I decided that was like easier. So I went and I did that, man. And that's where I decided that I really didn't want to do the schoolwork. I didn't want to deal with the pressure. Started to drink even more. And that's where I ended up where? You know, that's the question you asked. Come on.
Skirt.
I went from like #1 public school in America to like the worst public school in Boston. I ended up at Dorchester High.
Just say it, man. You know what I'm saying?
I ended up at Dorchester High, which at the time was called Noonan Business Academy, right? Which is
great title.
No, but let me explain what happened. I was exiting Latin Academy, and they're like, "Oh, please put down the schools that you want to go to." And I'm seeing, "Ooh, Noonan Business Academy. I like business."
That sounds good.
I put it on there. They told me like, "Oh, you got accepted to Noonan Business Academy." I'm like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." And then I look up the address and I match it up with the fact that it's Dorchester High, and I'm like, "Oh my God, my world is crumbling on me." And
no knock to Dorchester High. We're not knocking it whatsoever. We're just saying that he went from one of the best schools in the city, the state, and then he went to not so best school in the state. That's all.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some talented individuals, some scholars that have come out of that school, but I was not one of them.
I know a few.
Yeah.
Good people, man.
Absolutely.
So what was your experience like going from, hold on, like let's just take us through like the real depiction. I'm sure at Boston Latin School, all the students were like a bit more focused.
Yeah.
Parents were more, went to really good professions.
Mm-hmm.
So the students were a little different from Dorchester High students?
Oh, I mean, night and day. Some of the students that I was interacting with at Latin school, like, had houses on the vineyard, and, like, they played with John Kerry's kids, and, like, a very different crowd than going to Dorchester High, where some of the kids don't even know who their dad is, right? Some of the kids are already bringing in guns to school. There was none of that at Latin school, to my knowledge, right? But like I knew as soon as I was going into Dorchester that there was, because I had to walk through metal detectors.
And was that the moment? That was at the moment you realized this is definitely a different type of environment?
It was definitely one of those moments, right? It was a few of those moments, right? Like the school being locked down a few times while I was in school. Like everybody don't leave your classrooms, right? Like there was a shooting outside. Like that's different than going to.
And we're joking, I'm laughing, but that's real life stuff, man. It's devastating what happens to some of these schools in the city. And I don't mean to make light of it. I'm just, giving Javi a hard time about switching and going from one to another. But, I do respect and I have love for all these kids in these schools, for real.
Yeah, man, and it was just a lot. But that goes into like all the socioeconomic issues that surround that, right? Like these kids have money, and like poverty isn't what their next meal isn't what they're worried about, so they're able to concentrate and focus on school. Whereas I went to Dorchester High, like a lot of these kids are underprivileged, right, and don't have nothing, so they're not worried about like getting these A's. They're worried about like how I'm gonna eat today.
How I'm gonna get one over? How I'm gonna make a few dollars? How I'm gonna take care of my family? Yeah. Some of these kids are raising their siblings.
Yeah,
it gets real over there.
No lie.
So they go from like not caring about academics to just food on the plate. So you go through high school. How did you get through that experience to finish up?
I crawled past the finish line, even at a school that academically was way below where I was, right?
But you also have more freedom. You have more freedom to do you. Nobody really held you as accountable like they were at the Boston Lions School. Right, and structure was different for sure.
The structure was different in the school, and at the same time, my drinking was beginning to take off. Right, so the structure that I had at the school was different. But most importantly, during that time with the drinking, my father ended up getting up and leaving us. And I know that you might remember or might not remember, but like the last straw for him was when he like got up to hit my mom, and I got in the way of it. We were all drunk, and he was like, "This kid's out of control," and he used that as the catalyst for him to get up and leave. And like now I have a blind mother who's depressed, who could. I mean, deep down, she probably cares about my school, but she can't even get out of bed, right? The father who had brought me to all these programs and taught me about being a good student was no longer there, so I had all the freedom in the world.
So not only did you lose the good school, you lost your parental stability.
Correct.
So you crawled, you made it.
I crawled.
You graduated.
I think I had like 100 and something tardies my senior year. I graduated with a 0.7 GPA.
Can you even graduate with a 0.7?
I had to go to summer school.
So you got your diploma late?
Yeah.
So while everybody's crossing, you were still trying to finish up?
Yeah. So barely made it, but I made it. Got my diploma.
And then after that, I know you. So you got your diploma. The house is a little bit of in shambles. What were you trying to figure out after high school?
I mean, after high school, I got with Pucho's mom, my kid's mom.
Shout out to Ivana, we love you.
Yeah, no disrespect.
All love.
But yeah, I mean, I got with her immediately. Like, I remember it was prom night. We didn't want to go to prom, so we ended up all going to the club, and she was one of the people that went, and like that's where we linked up. And after that, like she was there. She held me
Horse
down.
in the baby carriage. All right.
She held me down
because I my godson. Love Pucho.
I went through some tough times after our relationship started, man, and I know.
But you was chefing too, right?
Yes. And again, we're doing this interview, and after this point, right, it's definitely all a blur. So like chronologically, I can't.
I'll help you. But it's the real. This is how real his story gets, right? Like, the fact that he can't remember a lot past that, to me, even now hearing that, it's kind of mind-blowing because I almost feel like I knew more during that time frame than he did. And that just goes to show you how impactful some of these things can be in your life. The drinking, etc., etc. I don't want to put more on. I'll let him finish that. But I know at one point you was chefing. You was cordon bleuing. You was looking to become a chef because you loved cooking. There's still a little bit of that fabric inside of you today. But I know that was kind of like some of the fundamentals that you learned from cooking.
Yeah, so definitely the Le Cordon Bleu was sprinkled in there at some point. I seen one of them commercials while I was watching Maury, not doing nothing with my life. You want to change your
Maury
life?
held it down for a lot of people. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Maury held it down for all of us. When we had no school,
he held it
or
down.
we skipped school.
He held it down, and he got me into school, right?
Look at
one of the commercials, I was like, yo, you know what? Let's go try that out.
After they started fighting, it cut to the camera, and it was like,
oh, inspiration.
He goes from fighting to like, yo, go to school. All right.
Yeah, so
I can dig it.
So I ended up at Le Cordon Bleu, got in, overpriced tuition, but I wanted to do something.
How much
were
they charging?
It was $37,000 for 2 years.
Wow.
At that time, for like an associate's degree.
37 for an associate's.
Yeah. Which nowadays is probably like around market rate, but this was like 2010, and like Le Cordon Bleu was not ringing names in like places where you go to work unless it was a kitchen, right?
Well, the commercial work then.
The commercial work, but they out of business. Shout out to
Did
that.
they really?
Yeah.
At $37,000,
right.
You find the students, man. But
yeah.
All right, so you started chefing. You're trying to figure this life thing out. You started having some drinks. Young father, stressed. You started having drinks.
I mean, to be honest, we know the drink started like early, right? At that point, it wasn't like having some drinks. I was teetering with alcoholism, right? Because I was already going to Latin Academy. I remember I would go to Latin Academy with a Poland Spring bottle filled with vodka in it.
I didn't even know this. So this is back in BLA days.
BLA days, I would go with a bottle of vodka and go sit at the McDonald's near Boston Latin Academy and wait till like I think at 10.
So do you think you? I'm sorry. Do you think you was drinking that early because of the schooling that you feel like you might have?
I hated school, and I think that that's one of the things that parents don't seem to understand. If you hate something and you're pressuring that kid to do well in that thing that they absolutely despise, they have some like
animosity
towards their parents. They have some identity issues, right? And I was drinking it.
So hated school, started drinking. Right after school, started to get a little bit more.
Yeah, it was already right. Like
it was already aggressive.
I got kicked out of that prom night we talked about earlier. We went out to the club. I got kicked out that night for drinking. Right. So
I didn't know that either. You didn't tell me this. You held out for that many years?
There's probably a lot that'll come out, right?
I swear you didn't tell me.
There's probably a lot that'll come out.
I was around you at that time. You got kicked out and you told me. What you told me? You're like, Eric, they didn't want me there? We just dipped out early.
Yeah, I probably made up some lie.
Chasing some tail.
Yeah,
I got you.
But that wasn't the case, man. I got kicked out for drinking.
You were drinking at the prom?
It wasn't
How they
prom.
find out?
We went to the club for prom night.
So you didn't even get to the prom?
Nah, we were all like, it was like a group of us. It was like me, remember Chicken Little, Juju, right?
With them?
Ivana, we went to the shout out to Juju, Chicken Little.
I haven't seen Juju in years.
We went to the club. What was it? BBC Beach Club or something like that?
Bahamas Beach Club, BBC. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah, in Revere, and I got kicked out of there.
So you got kicked out of BBC?
Yeah, because
then you ended up at the prom?
I ended up at my house.
So you didn't even go to prom. So you got kicked out of BBC and didn't even go to prom.
Didn't even go to prom.
Oh man, that's tough. All right, cool.
So yeah, like at that point, I was already seeing consequences from the drinking, and we'll back it up a little bit more. You remember I crashed your first car? Remember that where I got my knee injury?
The Acura?
No. There's a few cars in our story, guys.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Whoa.
Hey, the black Ford Explorer.
I love that car.
Remember I crashed it into the snowbank next to Peggy's house.
Oh my goodness.
You remember that?
I remember the Acura being crashed into a snowbank and not being
it was the black one.
Right,
it was the black Ford Explorer.
So my first baby, I used to love that car.
Yeah, I never forget. You used to whip that car. You had the big puffer jacket with the orange inside. What were they called? Bomber jackets?
Bomber jackets.
So you used to, driving recklessly. And one night, I don't know why, but you let me drive it. I think I had just gotten my permit. I was drinking. I crashed it, right?
I'm hating you right now, but go ahead.
I crashed it into the snowbank. I couldn't get it out. I was panicking. Somebody stopped behind me. They jumped in the driver's seat, and they're like, push, I'll drive, because they knew how to drive. I didn't.
Oh, I remember. Down the hill, like going down. Okay, yeah, and it was an ice patch. You slipped.
And I was pushing, and there was an ice patch, and I slipped, and I just heard pop, right? And we ain't gonna throw no names out there, but I did end up getting a perk that night.
Yeah, no names, but absolutely.
I got a perk that night.
For the pain. So that's the first time you ever took one?
Maybe.
Wow.
Maybe.
Wow, we just found that on the cast. Look at that.
Yeah, maybe.
See, No Tilt Podcast. We're here to share with you the realness, man.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that this is the day that it happened. I remember the car crash now that you mentioned it.
Wow. Maybe that was the first time I was the first night. So I was like 16.
All right, so started to doze into alcohol at like 14.
But hold on, 15. That story gets better because what happened, I took that perk, I drank with a broken meniscus. That's where it ended up, right? I ended up with a broken meniscus. I ended up going to a party with a cane and dancing, right? Getting the stinky
dirty wine, doing the dirty wine.
Dirty wine, right?
How you dirty wine and after getting
drinking Bud Light in a perk, like just crazy, right? And then part of that is that the meniscus came into play, right? Because you want to talk about the downfall, but let's talk about like the precursor to the downfall, which was I had a broken meniscus. I went to go get surgery. And when they sent me home from surgery, they sent me home with liquid Roxicet, which is like Percocet. Vicodin,
never heard of liquid Roxicet.
Vicodin,
Jesus.
Vicodin, and another painkiller. And I sat up, had to miss school.
Wait, so at 16 you're prescribed. Hold on, at 16 you're prescribed. At 16 you're prescribed
Roxicet.
Roxicet, I never heard of that one.
Yeah, liquid Roxicet. A lot of you guys might have seen, if you ever got into the Perk 30 game, the Roxys, right? Roxy 30s. That was Roxicet. So
okay.
So they sent me home with like liquid oxycodone, let's say, right? That's what it's called, Roxicet. And then Vicodins. 7.
At 16.
At 16. So I had to miss school for a couple weeks. And I was able to miss school. I was able to not feel none of my feelings. I was able to play video.
So you numbed it early.
I numbed it early. Found a way that I could actually numb them, right? Because alcohol was like very temporary, and there was a lot of like waking up hungover, this and that, right? The smell, the pills. It was like, oh, I'm good, right? This
easier to deal with.
Easier to deal with. You take one pill, you're gonna feel it, right? It's not like drinking that you gotta like do funnels and this and that.
Different kind of ways.
So at that point, I knew I had liked the perk feeling. So mind you, I'm dabbling with the alcohol, but at the same time, I'm continuing to go to a certain individual to like see how I can scheme and get a few more perks. Even did some crimes to get those perks.
Like what?
I broke somebody's like windows and slashed their tires to get 10 perk 15s.
Yeah, but 10 perk 15s was a come up. So
yeah, it was a come up, but like
that's what I'm saying. So I was like, yeah. But you're like, yo, if I could to get that many, I'm sure he was like,
I was like, oh, lit, let's do it. So I got drunk that night, and I did that, and then I got to come up the next day, and like that, I'm 17 at this point, right?
So now you're 17. You're knee deep in alcohol. Yeah. You're knee deep in Percocets.
Yes. Where do you want to go with that?
Where did it start getting? Where did the Percocets get increased? When did it not become enough?
I think the mode of administration changed, meaning I went from taking perks and drinking to like I sniffed coke for the first time. So when I sniffed coke for the first time, that was a different feeling. So now I'm chasing different feelings because I'm like, oh, the alcohol was okay, but like the perk was better. So like this is something new. Let's try it. So like now I've popped my cherry with sniffing things, and these are like, and this is how it happens because most people think like, oh, you go from this to like injecting, right? No, it's like a slow thing where you slowly break down some of the stigma that you have on certain.
Side note, real quick, Gateway, is that real? Because I think this is a good time to mention Gateway because you're mentioning how you had different feelings and kind of gradually, over time increase as harder substances, right?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say. This is my personal opinion.
Yo, don't y'all look at him. This is his. Thank him for sharing this stuff because not a lot of people are willing to share these kind of things. So shout out to that.
Yeah, man. My personal opinion is that alcohol is a real gateway drug. I believe that because now weed is legal, right? But back then alcohol was like legal, and
Still legal.
It's still legal, and it's something that people relate to being social. They relate to celebrations, right? They relate to all these important events in life. Like we won a championship game,
Popping champagne like we won a championship
You understand?
game.
So people see that and they're glorifying that and they try that, right? And then for me, addiction means that something clicked in you where you found that escaping felt good and you begin to chase that.
There you go.
Right? So a lot of people's first thing...
You're in agreements that alcohol is a great way.
Yeah.
So then you went from alcohol, Percocets to coke, started sniffing coke.
Then somebody was like, again, I ain't going to throw them under the bus, but they was like, yo, you want to try this? And they like crushed up an Oxy 30 for me.
So coke, then Oxy 30's crushed.
Because now that I've released that thing about, oh my God, I'll never sniff drugs, right? That's what like...
It became acceptable.
That's what like tecatos do, right? Like, that's not who I am.
Tecatos is a term for a person who's a drug addict. Like really, really bad into drugs in the streets.
Strung out person. Like, so I'm like, oh, I'm not that person. And as I slowly removed that, I was able to get to the point where I did say yes to sniffing the Perk 30. And that was another feeling. I'm like, damn, this feels good, right?
And it helped you escape from the boat.
It's all about escape, you know? Some people feed into that escapism more than others, but I think that everybody does try to find ways to escape, man.
I hear you. So now you're escaping. Now you just took a whole nother lane to that. Yeah. And now you're sniffing perks. What happens?
I'm sniffing perks. I'm sniffing coke. I'm working in the kitchen, right? And doing delivery, driving, and doing different things that are like high stress jobs. The people that usually work in that field are usually doing drugs, right?
I remember you working in different kitchens. And,
yeah, different. So it's like nurses, construction workers, and people that work in kitchens are like the top 3 people that
nurses?
Are going to... Yeah.
Wow.
Because they're usually taking care.
And they have access to it.
They have access, but also they see a lot of stuff, and nobody's taking care of them, right? Like a doctor is going to see some crazy stuff, give a diagnosis, but the person that's going to be there every hour on the hour with that patient is the nurse.
Real. So now you sniffing and...
Now I'm sniffing. Things are getting out of control.
How's the family at this point?
Disastrous.
Yeah, is it already started at this point, or is it getting there? Because you still have a son. How old is your oldest son at this point?
At this point, let's say 2.
So you got a son that's 2. You got your lady.
Yeah.
And you're just turning up.
I'm just turning up. I'm being what a person with an addiction has, right? I'm being selfish the whole time. And again, I can't even really tell you what they were feeling at the times. I know that I remember, like, when Pucha was born, I left to drink and smoke. Like, I was always not being present and grateful for family and, like, being who I was supposed to be. And those are a lot of the things that I have to deal with now, right? Present day.
Still hasn't.
I mean, I've forgiven myself for a lot, right? And that's what allows me to continue my process of recovery nowadays. But
now let's go back. So now you're and then what? Then you get into some more deeper stuff.
Yeah, I think the next deeper stage was...
Are we talking about my second car at this point? The first car or the third? Which one are we going with this time?
Oh, I think the second car we just brushed right over. We can talk about that another
We'll leave that alone.
Yeah, that's the Acura that you broke.
Oh,
you did that.
Was it me?
You broke that
I still
Acura.
blame you because you're the part of it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Ford Explorer, so it brought back my flashbacks.
Yeah.
Right, cool.
That we'll jump to the third car in a bit. But before it got out of control with the sniffing the perks, I think that it was like an occasional thing. I was still drinking, but then I had a perk habit. And I was driving up to Lawrence every day before school.
Ooh.
Every single day before school, crushing in the McDonald's parking lot, sniffing and going to school and being fucking Chef Gordon Ramsay.
Wow.
Tearing it up. Top of the class, right? But then what happened was I fumbled the bag with the person that was providing them for me. I messed up.
I don't know any of this. I'm learning.
I messed up. I ended up getting some to hold, and I started selling a couple, but I was really doing most of them. And then, like, I was on my way up to grab some more. I had $1,000, and I was so high I lost the money.
So you had the money.
I lost it. Yeah.
So oof.
Like I got out of the gas station and fell out my pocket.
$1,000.
Yeah, and then I went back and like it was gone and the perks were gone and I had no way of getting anything. And I was the next day I went to work, and I was sick, and I didn't know why.
Where were you working at?
I was working the construction job next behind my house.
Oh wow, I remember. Oh wow, okay.
So I went to work that day, and I'm just like leaning and sleeping on a. It was like a real estate place had furnished the place, and I was sleeping on one of the staged beds.
The product? You sleeping on the product?
Yeah, because I was tired, man, and I had chills, and I felt sick, and I had no energy to go. And the person that was working with me, that was like into the perks too, was like, "You're dope sick." And I'm like, "What you mean I'm dope sick?"
Is that when you first learned? So you first learned? Wow.
That's when I first learned about being dope sick and the fact that I needed this substance in my body to be able to continue. And that shit was a scary moment, man. Because at that point in time, it was like, what do you do? Because I had work and then I had school that night. And I was like, I didn't perform at work. Now I can't miss school. So that's when I went to somebody in the neighborhood. I had $20, right? Couldn't buy a perk 30. I was looking for a perk 15. The gentleman goes, I'll call him a gentleman. I'll give him that. Well, no disrespect, but he's like,
how old were you?
22-ish, 23, something like that.
Go ahead. I don't like this gentleman because he pretty much turned you out, right? Into a much. But I get it. I understand it. He thinks he's helping because you're dope sick.
But at the same time, he was turned out because the way that I was able to embrace it was because he was like, I haven't had perks in a few days, but look, and he took a bump
of
dope, of heroin, right? He took the bump and was like, look, it's not that serious. So I'm like, I've been sniffing perks. It's just
and coke, so you already got adjusted to that. I'm
adjusted to sniffing, so it's like, oh, what's this? Like, let me just see a little bit. So he gave me a bump, and I'm like, oh, I do feel better. So I took the bag, and like
cheaper. Just to be clear, perk 30s cost how much?
Now,
so it's 30 milligrams.
30 milligrams at that time they were costing $30, so $1 a milligram.
You said now, how much do they cost now?
So that's a funny thing. They ended up going to $35 to $40 a perk 30, but now since there's so many pressed perk 30s, you can get them for 20 because they're fake. And the people that are getting them and selling them for 20 are buying them for $2 to $3 a piece.
Because they're fake.
Where back in the day, you were paying $17, $18, $19.
How much? All right, so you said you didn't have $30, you had 20. So you know nobody would sell you the $30 one. So you use the $20 for the brown. How much was this bag?
It was. I think he called it a 20. Like you just wanted 20.
So he gave you 20. It was $20.
$20 worth.
But
yeah.
Does it come with? It came with more.
Yeah, like I was good for like 2 days.
Oh my goodness! So it was a lot cheaper.
A lot cheaper. A lot more potent.
It lasts a lot longer.
Exactly. So,
right, so now
in my head, right, I'm reasoning it and rationing, and I'm saying this shit makes more sense for me to do this than to like go to Lawrence every day, right? Like I got the plug in my hood. It's cheaper. It lasts longer. We're gonna try this for a little while, and that's when I started doing that every day.
And you would say this is where things elevated to a whole nother.
This is where things got out of control, man. And I remember it was the middle of a blizzard. I was dope sick, and like I went out. It was one of those warnings where nobody should be on the road, and I was out on the road, man. And I had to leave my minivan that I was using in the main road on Warren Street, and I had to walk down one of the side streets. That side street that you took me to that one time.
I didn't know. Oh, did I know? Did I know? I don't even remember.
So we'll get there. So I walked down there, boom, cop, went back home, dangerous, straight dangerous. Meanwhile, my son's at the house, right, with Ivana, and like it's just a crazy time in my life. And things got so bad that my life spiraled. I dropped out of school. I wasn't working no more. And I asked for help for the first time. And I asked for help, and I told you guys, like, yo, I got a problem. You remember it now?
I remember, yeah.
I said, I got a problem.
There was also a lot of up and downs, too. So I remember, but there was a few of these, I feel like.
So I said, I got a problem. I need help. And you guys are like, okay, well, what does help look like? I'm like, well, I don't know. I need to go to the hospital. Because at that time, I didn't know what help looked like. So you guys were like, okay, but first, I need you guys to buy me a bag.
That's what I remember. Yeah, I remember us. If we did, it was to help because you were gonna.
Because I was sick and I wanted to die, and I needed a bag to get me through to the hospital. So you guys did that. It is what it is.
I did.
And I ended up going to detox, and I went to the detox that was at. Well, I went to BMC, and from BMC they took me to the detox that's right on Mass Ave. It's no longer there, but Boston Cab was right in the corner where you guys see all the madness, right? Like it was there. So I was up there with some people that they were going just for a spin drive, is what they call it. They were going up there, getting some rest, getting their tolerance down, getting a meal, right back out.
I've never heard a spin dry in my life.
Yeah,
that's wild.
So I was in there with
that's
some.
That's a real thing that people still do.
Yeah. So I was up there with some like hardcore like drug users, man, and I'm somebody that like again. I'm naive. I slowly fell into this trap, like little by little.
And you were still in kind of like the beginning stages compared to some of these other guys.
Right.
So now you with the kind of like the veterans of like
veterans. They had me
OGs of this lifestyle.
They had me sniffing depression medicine in the bathroom and shit, like crazy.
And it was almost normalized by that.
For them.
Yeah, you was them. Like, what are you doing?
For them, they were like,
so normal.
They were all happy and excited and crushing it in the bathroom. And I'm like, well, what is this? And it was burning and it didn't feel good. But I'm like, I don't know. I'm still trying to escape. And I'm trying to escape the fact that I ended up in this place.
Because you're stressed because of where you were. Now you're stressed because of where you are.
Yes. And one of the things that I'll never forget is they go, well, what are you here for? Right? Like it's jail. Like, what are you here for? I'm like, oh, I was doing dope. They're like, what, you were shooting it? Or I'm like, nah, I was just sniffing it. They're like,
you ain't a real.
Like, no, they ain't even say like you ain't a real. They're like, why are you wasting your money like that? That's ridiculous. I'm like, what you mean? They're like, you gotta shoot that shit, bro. It's a waste, right? Like, with a 20 bag, I can get through 2-3 days, whereas a 20 bag you're going through in 1 day. So like, does it make sense? I'm like, shit, no. But in my head, I'm naive. I'm like, I'm never using it again, so it doesn't even matter. So I get out that program. I have no recovery support. I have like nobody to vent to about the fact that I still have these cravings, right? And I feel that if I go to my family to talk about these cravings, they're gonna judge me because like, look at everything I've been through. So I was just
look how much you put your family through.
Right.
Gotcha.
So it was just eating me up alive, and I went and I did a month, and I was okay for a month. And then I was like, oh my God, I think I'm gonna get high. And I had that thought, and it was like, well, what do I do? And my brain started spinning. I'm like, I gotta shoot it up because that's what they told me, right? Like, I just want to try it.
Damn, that's the planting of the seed, right? We talk about that all the time. So even though at that moment you didn't jump into it, it stayed with you until the moment you needed and you was desperate. And then
so they planted that seed, and that seed was eating away. It started whispering, and then like it was yelling louder and louder, and then I didn't even know where to start. So
I call that the devil. I feel like that's the devil. That's like kind of the speaking through you in a negative way.
Negative energy.
Yeah, negative energy.
Definitely there and making some noise. So I ended up going on YouTube. I went on YouTube.
Where the hell did YouTube come from?
Because I didn't know how to shoot up.
So YouTube taught you how to get
I went on YouTube, and it was I'll never forget, it was a video. I wonder if I can find this video. It was a video of an old lady, and she was like in this dingy ass room, and she just grabbed the belt, and she's like loading up. She goes and she like shows in the blood circles up into the syringe, and then she presses it, and like she just goes, oh my God.
How's this stuff even on YouTube? What the? That's wild.
Educational purposes.
I guess. That's wild. That should have been taken down the moment it went up. Go ahead.
So, whatever. I went, bought a syringe, bought a pack of syringes, went and copped dope. Didn't know if I could do it in the house, so I did it in the dark in the minivan, the minivan that I've talked about a couple times. I did it in the dark, and I know I missed, and it burned I felt it a little bit, but at that point, I had already crossed that threshold. I shot up. So now I got to figure it out. So boom, I figured it out. I figured it out, and man,
continue to that's like a fast train at this point.
yeah,
Right?
that
Like a speeding bullet.
this train is taking off and it's going fast, and I have no idea how to stop it. I don't know where the brakes
no
are.
brakes.
And this is really where things become a blur, because I remember it was just years and years of me using, going into treatment. My family thinking that I was gonna get it, not being able to get it. I tried to go on methadone. I would still shoot dope after I got my methadone dose in the morning, so like I overdosed on that. Um, and like I even, this is kind of hard to talk about, but like my son's mom, like one time she was in the room and I was like watch this, and she's looking at me and she's just crying, and I'm like shooting up because I was like, this is such a lonely place. Like somebody needs to be here with me, man. And you could just see the pain in her eyes, and like I didn't know how to process that shit. Um, but yeah, shit got crazy. Uh, Drugs took a hold of me. I was doing things that I wasn't proud of. Like I was driving people around, like I was their personal chauffeur, so they could sell drugs, so I can get my drugs. I was like owing this person, borrowing from that person, stealing things. Like I stole from my grandmother, rest in peace, right? Like I stole a lot of money from her. Like I stole my the TVs from my house. Like yo, I laugh about it now, but like I did some shit.
Throw a little bit of fun into a little humor into
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
I heard about the PS.
Damn. I stole my niece's PlayStation.
That's wrong, but
it's wrong. But
he got his karma. Go ahead.
I lied about it. I said they told me like, oh, it was this person. I know it wasn't. I'm like that motherfucker, right? Like yo, it's just sick. A sick individual with no integrity. All types of tilt in my life, and
but what did you get in return for the merchandise? This is a different one I'm talking about.
Oh, you talking about I'm talking about Rivers PS that I mentioned.
My kids PS.
Yes, because yes, there's that. But then there was that time where I took my PlayStation, right, and I brought it to the drug dealer, and like I had to fight my mom to get out the door with the PlayStation because she's like, "Yo, you've gone too far, right? Yeah. Like this is the last thing you have of any value, right? What are you doing?" She's like, I'm like, I need my bag. So I go and I sell it, and like those words are ringing in my head, like, you have nothing left. Right? So I'm like, I have nothing left. Fuck it. So I got 2 grams for that PS. And I went to the McDonald's bathroom in Eggleston Square. I tried to shoot it up, all of it in one shot, which would have been guaranteed
probably
death.
Saved your life.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know. I don't know the detail. I didn't know it was that much. I just
It was 2 grams.
I just learned about what happened, but I didn't know it was so much. It
was 2 grams.
So thank God.
Luigi, I remember that.
Jerk. But I just remember, I didn't realize that moment saved your life.
Yeah. So that's one of the things where I talked about it earlier that I don't believe.
Finish it. You can't be skipping. All right, so why didn't it kill you?
Because it was brown sugar, man. I got sold brown sugar. They thought I was baking a cake. I was trying to end my life, and it didn't go as planned. And honestly, it's the best thing that could have happened. And
God blessed you that day.
Yeah, like God was looking out for me plenty of times. Like the times that I was about to crash into like an 18-wheeler and like they honked the horn and I was able to get up and swerve out the way. Right, like there was that time. I don't think I've ever shared that with anybody. No.
So you're in this fast train going 90, 100 miles an hour, and about to hit a brick wall. You should have hit a brick wall with that truck. You should have hit a brick wall with that brown sugar that ended up saving you. What was the when did you feel like you hit rock bottom? Like where was this going towards? When did you finally crash? I'd say.
So figuratively and literally, the time that I crashed was the time that I crashed. And before that, I was playing with it. I wasn't taking any of this serious. I thought I could figure it out on my own. But I had a situation where I was taking Suboxone, which is like a opioid partial agonist, which is like a very sciencey term, but it's something that blocks the dope from going into your receptors, and it also helps with the cravings. I was on that, so I went. I was doing good for a little bit. We were smoking weed, right? Um, and you said, yeah, go grab a bag of bud, right? And I'm like, cool. So I go see my bud dealer, and he's like, I got something new, and I can smell it. It smell like vinegar, and I'm like excited about it, right? He's like, yeah, this shit's uncut, so be careful. This was when fentanyl first came around.
I didn't know it was fentanyl.
It was fentanyl.
I didn't know that either. I'm learning too, man. That was a part I was around, but
So
certain detail I don't know because I wasn't there.
so it was fentanyl, and I know it because it came up in my blood work. But I did a blast, right? And then I was like,
but you was also clean for a little bit too.
yeah, I was on the Suboxone for like a year.
And not taking anything.
No, excuse me, like a few months, not taking anything. So my tolerance is down. This is fentanyl. So I did one blast, and I don't remember taking the second one, but I know I did. And then everything blacked out for me. There was nothing after that. But apparently, I think this is a better place for you to take the story because you know better after this, right? Apparently, I got in the car, I drove off, and I crashed into 4 vehicles.
I'll jump in. So I just remember I had a pretty nice car.
At the time,
it wasn't a Ford Explorer. It was an all black, tinted out Nissan Maxima. It was brand new, and I was switching insurances. And I just remember, like, I didn't know if it was a good idea to let him go, but I didn't. You know, he was clean at that time with that. And then I just remember you leaving to the store or going to go see him, and then not hearing back.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, it's only supposed to take 20 minutes to come back. So I'm sitting here trying to figure that out. And, you know, my wife was there. We're talking about where's Javi. I'm like, I have no idea. He said he'd be right back. And then we get a phone call from the hospital saying that he crashed. He's alive, but you didn't want to talk to me.
Yeah, I was scared as shit.
He's like, you don't want to talk to me.
Uh-huh.
He's like, so the nurse gave me all the information. That's when we learned about how he pretty much died. But I want to bring it back to when I found the story out from the police officer, who then told me that you had crashed into 4 cars. So I guess when you was coming back, that second blast you talked about, you went through a red light, and then you hit a car, and then somehow I think you woke up and tried to reverse, hit another car, and I think you ping-ponged a few times and hit a few cars back and forth, and then that's when you flatlined.
Yeah.
So she said that she had come and she found you on the floor. She started giving you ventilation. She started CPR, the whole 9. And I remember she said that the paramedic was doing this, and the cop said she was just looking at her watch, waiting to pronounce you dead. So she said, like, literally, you stopped breathing, you had no pulse, and she was just counting down the seconds so that she could get the time recorded, and then that's when you woke up.
The Narcan kicked in.
The Narcan. You know that better than I didn't. But that's what happened. So he got the Narcan, they brought him to the hospital, and then he was able to get revived. I was pissed off with him. I think I wanted to finish the job at that point. Like, oh, you didn't die yet? All right, where's he at? My turn, right? Because I was about to let loose because I was going through my own stuff, and I just didn't want to deal with a brand new car like that getting crashed. But I thank God every day that it happened.
Yeah.
Because he's much more worth. He's worth much worth in a car. And it's also, I think, in my mind, I don't think I ever realized this, but I put less stock into valuable things. I think for me, relationships, people I care about, my children, family, mean more to me than any materialistic thing. And I think at that time I didn't see it that way. So in a way, it made me appreciate the real things in life, not so much as
the material
stuff.
And you know that car.
I thank God to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. And that
I didn't talk to you for a while.
Huh?
I didn't talk to you for a little while.
No, he talked to me for like a year plus, and I don't blame him, man. Like, you know, that was a big hit on financially, everything. I remember that you had to go into some savings that you wasn't planning on touching to fix the car, and it was
money.
Yeah, house money. I was playing with house money, and that's crazy. But that's where your addiction takes you. You're selfish, man. You don't care about nobody else. But to talk briefly on that moment, you said, when did things change? I think that was the beginning and the catalyst for change, because prior to that, this is what you stopped me from going into earlier, but I always had a problem with God, and I didn't understand why God would allow bad things to happen, and just always had a fight with Him, right? And at that moment, I was able to have my first spiritual awakening, where I was like, I came out of it, right? And I was bleeding, I was coughing up blood, scratched all up, and I'm just like, holy shit, something got to be watching over me.
There's nowhere should have survived.
I'm like a fucking cockroach. I can't fucking die. So at that moment, like, I began to nurture and care for something greater than myself, right? And that's where some of the selfishness that comes with addiction was able to be lifted from me. And that's where I began.
Shout out to Lifted. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, shout out to Lifted. We're gonna get into that. But at that moment, I was able to get that off my chest and start listening, right? And listening to me meant taking suggestions. I went to detox shortly after, and I met Narcotics Anonymous in there. I had heard them 1,000 times before, but they had been nothing but an interruption to me. And at that point, I was listening. I found that, like, community and love and a higher power were things that I needed to tap into, and I did that. And now this time I came out of detox, and it wasn't like the first time where I had to not be able to express myself because of fear of judgment and not feel alone in that dark place that I was. And at that point, that moment in time, things began to change. So yeah, that's where it started. And then again, right, hard-headed, somebody with an addiction problem. I went out a couple more times after that. Not gonna lie, but being in recovery had fucked up my get high, because at that point I knew better.
He wasn't enjoying it as much.
I wasn't enjoying it as much because I knew that I was escaping, but there was an answer to the escape, and that was like love and community and partnerships and relationships and a higher power and, you know, being of service. And yeah.
So for me, it's like at this point, you've battled, you've gotten through. I wasn't gonna ask you what keeps you straight and narrow, but I think you just said it, right? What's been the benefits from staying sober?
So that's a twofold question, because you think that I gave the answer, but I didn't, because this is
Well, then divulge more into that, and then talk about.
Yeah, so this is an ongoing process. Recovery is an ongoing process where you continue to discover things about yourself that you never knew. You discover things that you like.
Layers. There's
layers and layers, right? So the same thing that kept you clean in the beginning isn't going to do the same 2 years and a year and 3 years. It keeps developing, and if you don't develop with it, then you're like bound to go, because in the 12 steps it says either we grow or we die, right? Like, just plain and simple.
Wow.
So
and I mean, that could be said for a lot. That's
right.
A powerful statement.
Either you grow or you die in the industry you work in, right? Either you grow or you die in it. And it's just, I took that model, and I've learned that, yes, that was my foundation, but I've also incorporated like smart recovery and cognitive behavioral therapy and meditation, right? Like, meditation was a big part of my story, getting in touch with like the universe, being in touch with like the vibrations, the energies, all of that, right? It's continuing to grow, and I think that I'm still not even close to reaching it. So that is what keeps me, right?
Sure.
But also, like, my job, right? Like, my job is my purpose. Like, I have a purpose where I go to work, which is a lot of people don't do that. They go to a job that is like 9 to 5, clock in, clock out, boom, I'm done, give me my paycheck, right? Like, nah, I knew that I couldn't continue to do that, working in the kitchen, working in like menial jobs. I needed to find something that fed my spirit, and I did that. I'm a recovery coach now, and you said, what are the benefits of getting sober? Is that what you said? So there's like
I know you're a fisher. I know you like to fish. I feel like you spend more time out there now.
Oh, that I didn't touch on that. Yeah, like I like.
Yeah, talk about all the stuff.
Yeah.
Pastelito, like what's up, man? Talk about like because at the end of the day, dark cloud is being lifted. It's still always around. I get it, right? It doesn't always have sunny days, but there are some sunnier days now.
Right? So philosophically, I talked about it, the things that I do, but more day to day. Like, I make sure I have fun, man, and I fucking live my life. because I spend too much time not living it. So like, I got my little joint on TikTok. They call me the Pastelito guy. We going around Pastelito, 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 and
you know what time it is.
review, because that's what we do. We in the motherfucking living room. So there's that. Like I go out fishing. Like I joke with my son now, the one that I put through so much turmoil, right? Like
shout out to him, right?
Yeah,
that's
like Pucho,
smart young man.
He's smart. He's like caring. He's loving, and he hasn't let like all the shit that I put him through like tarnish that, man. And it's such a beautiful thing to see, and I'm forever grateful for that. And like what I do now is I'm present and I cherish that. I cherish that. I cherish my daughter Aubrey. Yeah, man, I have
cherish
fun.
those big old fishes you be catching.
Come on, 42 inches, all types of stripers. I be fishing, man, and that's another thing. I get peace out there. I'm able to just like be in touch with nature, and then like when I'm fighting that fish, that shit is exhilarating, right? Because let's not gloss over the fact that even though like the drugs are out of the picture, the drugs were merely a symptom of having the disease of addiction, right? The drugs is the symptom. Now I have other symptoms, whether it be sneakers, right? Whether it be spending money on things I shouldn't have, whether it be food, concerts, gambling. I'm still working and growing because I say that I'm still looking for ways to escape. They're just somewhat healthier.
Gotcha. But there's good healthy, right? There's good healthy habits, right? Like working out, fishing. I think these are good healthy habits.
Yes, moderation though.
Everything in life.
Right.
Yeah, I get you.
But there's times where I've gone over the edge in all of those things. Like during the pandemic, like being in the house was so stressful and I couldn't be around people. That's when I really picked up fishing, and like I was fishing morning to evening every single day.
Yeah.
And then I would go home and play Call of Duty from 7 p.m. till 3 in the morning. Wake up, do it again.
And then you went to tasting pastelitos from all around the state.
Yeah.
And different states.
And someday, man, I'm going to be global with the pastelitos, because even if I don't get like a crazy following off of that.
You got a good following, man.
I got a decent following, but even if like I never blow up, like I've been having fun doing it, man.
Real.
And that's all that matters to me. Like when that camera goes on and pastelito, it's just, I don't know.
You connect.
I connect.
So speaking of connecting, what do you say to these young people out there that are kind of going through it and need to be able to find the brighter things in life, have fun, experience the other side that you've been able to experience now? What do you say to all those young people?
That's a difficult question.
You wanted a little curveball. You got your curveball. You said, this is your chance. You're connecting with people on TikTok. I'm gonna let me get it. Let me prep it for you. You're on TikTok connecting, putting people on, these patelitos, you're having fun. Now we started this pod, and part of the reason why we started No Tilt is because we want to be able to connect with those individuals that's going through similar things, whether it's in different professions, going through hardships, whether it's in the community, whether it's mental instabilities, whether it's addiction, whether it's there's just so much to carry and so much to balance, right?
Yeah.
We're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone. I'm not alone. I've been through my turmoils. You've been through yours. So imagine all the other people, right? So this is another form of connection.
All right. So if I had to give it to you in a certain way, it would be this. There's a few tips that I'm gonna say. Coming
straight to a recovery coach.
Yeah, but that's crazy. That's crazy. You gonna prep it like that? Coming straight from a recovery coach.
He's a professional now, man. Wasn't you on the front cover of a magazine? Aren't you on like a clinic? You see, he's being very modest right now.
Yeah, but
he's
right now
we're a long way.
Yeah, I've come
the pressure.
I've come a damn long way, and if I had to say the things that were most influential to me that I think would be influential to you is, one, don't fold under pressure. Be yourself. Be authentic. Be very self-aware, because you need to know if something's bothering you, why it's bothering you, and how to change that, because it'll eat away at you. Another thing is be open and vulnerable, man. Like vulnerability and allowing people in and letting them know where you are is going to allow them to help you, and it's going to relieve some of that stress and some of that weight that you've been carrying around. Another big thing that has helped me is like mentorship, right? Like he was a mentor for me. He still is in like certain aspects of my life. I have like my brother Daniel. He's a mentor. He's like a business kind of spiritual mentor. Then I have like a spiritual mentor who like guides me through like all the spiritual battles that I have about morals and values, right? And it's important to like follow people who have done what you want to do to understand the pitfalls that you might encounter. So
They gotta listen too.
You gotta listen.
You gotta listen. I know
you gotta be open
I know some
minded.
of y'all think y'all got it all figured out and y'all can do things on your own. He's an example of not being able to, but once he started to, his life is flourishing.
360, right? I was able to tap into that little boy that had all the potential in the world because I was able to listen, right? I was finally able to listen, and that unlocked the potential because before that, I figured I was going to do it my way and it was going to work.
Now he's thriving. Pastelito King out here.
Because of guidance.
There you go, right? So now he's guiding others. That's what he does. I'm incredibly proud of this young man, older individual now who's more seasoned. I'm proud because, you know, even though I wanted to give up on him multiple times, even though he pissed me off multiple times, even though I lost a lot of money because of him multiple times, it was worth every cent because I always believed in him since the first day I met him. He knows this. He knows even though when I was pissed off on him, I still loved him. The love never wavered, and he knows this. Yeah. And I'm very happy to have been able to be there for the rest of what's been going on. Yeah.
And before you continue, I want to like give you a big shout out and a kudos on camera because what you did was like you balanced it perfectly. You were able to show me love and support, and you didn't enable me, and like that ended up playing out beautifully for me because a lot of people either disappear or they over-enable, right? So it's hard to keep that balance. And you were able to do that and set boundaries, and I think that's a big part of I am where I am today because of it.
Yeah, and I think you taught me valuable lessons too, right? You taught me a lot too. So I appreciate that. No boast, no BS. I appreciate that. But it was worth every penny, like I said. And all that's done is help me pass it forward to others, right? I learned a lot from you. You learned a lot from me. I've been there for you. You've been there for me. Yeah. And I think that's why we want to start this podcast together, No Tilt, because we just understand how much we've been through and how much we've been able to get through together. And now we're here to share that information with other people so they can figure this piece out too. Right. My turn is next week, so we'll go through my story next. But I wanted to start off with just somebody who's really special and dear to me, who's come a very long way, and now it's got a long way to go. So I'm going to tee it up for your last question and finish strong. How do you want to be remembered in the world, Papi? How you want to be remembered out here? Like, what's the lasting impression you want to leave in people's hearts?
So you were talking about the early one was a curveball. This is like deep. How do I want to be remembered? I want to be remembered as somebody that like stood for something.
You keep saying it's curveball, but then you got the perfect answer. But go ahead, finish. What do you mean?
I mean, you know, we've talked about passion and purpose in this a lot, and like I finally found that this substance use disorder stuff, I really have a passion for it because it affected me so much, and I feel that the Latinx and the Black community is so underserved that I'm willing to like die on the hill of we need fair and equity. We need fairness and equity in terms of everything that has to do with substance use disorder because we're dying out here, man. We're dying out here. I almost died. I did die basically, and if I died then, like I want to die now fighting it.
I mean, that's what No Tilt's about. I think he's on the right path to doing that. Follow, support, become part of our journey, because now you know who this man is. Now you know what he's trying to accomplish, and we're inviting you to come join us in this voyage. Because like him, I have similar beliefs where I want to be able to support and help others develop in their own time. Absolutely. I love people. I love community. I love to see people do well. And I want to kind of dispel and get to the bottom of anybody else who's trying to cripple us in this community. For instance, Perks at 16, I don't think that was right. I think ibuprofen, Tylenol was perfectly fine. Maybe a cast, but that's neither there or here. I just wanted to just share that piece because it's just, there's things that we can do to take care of ourselves, take care of each other's, take care of the community. That way we can all thrive together. Yeah. You can finish it up, man. Anything else you want to leave us with?
No, man, you spoke about the chemistry that we have and how long and how far we've gone back and the things that we've been through. And I think it's going to be beautiful to have different individuals join and be a part of that energy and create something beautiful, right? Every episode is going to be different energies intertwined and dancing and creating something that's going to have a powerful message for people to like feel empowered or make them think or make them go to bed and be like, damn, did I do something wrong today? Or damn, today was a good day, right? Like I want to be able to plant seeds in people, like the people that planted the seed in that detox for me, right? There's positive seeds, there's negative seeds, and I'm here. I think that as no tilt and what we believe in, we can plant some seeds.
We're gonna fight the good fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can't subscribe yet, but soon you'll be able to subscribe. So hit the subscribe, I believe. Yeah. Hit the like button. Show some love and hit us up directly. If y'all have our inbox us. We're interested to see what's out there. So if you got an idea, if you want to, introduce us to something or someone, let us know. We'll be happy to support.
Absolutely.
No tilt. That's all I got.
It's in the books.
Peace.